remember how fond you were of your baseball cards as a kid? To recapture that feeling, swing into Zootown Sports Cards. Missoula's premier trading card shop carries all the products you will need for collecting, whether you are renewing an old hobby, just getting started, or looking for a fun activity for your kids. With inventory that is updated regularly, Zootown Sports Cards has the best selections at the best prices anywhere in the valley. Open from noon till 6 on Tuesday through Friday and 10 to 6 on Saturdays. Come check out Zootown Sports Cards at South Avenue in Higgins across from Dornblazer Field.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. It's 4 o'clock. Welcome to Tutela Nuanez, Montana's only statewide sports talk show. Broadcast on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Western Montana and across the state on SWX Television.
I like football!
Now, sports talk from Montana for Montana. Live from the Kurtz Polaris studio, here is Ryan Tutel and Colter Nuanez.
Hello, Montana. Dante Olson wins the buck. The Grizzlies are playing basketball tonight. And what a divisional weekend and a national championship Saturday. And how about a national championship Monday that we have for you right here, right now. Hi, how are you? Great to be with you on this Monday afternoon. Spectacular day to you. Hope you had a wonderful weekend, and it just keeps going with the Natty coming up in 2 hours from now. We will get you all set for that here on Tutela Nuanez. Thanks for being with us, letting us spend some time with you on the radio waves across the state on SWX Montana Television /apps /internet /YouTube, wherever you are, podcasting it. We appreciate you being there. Thanks for being here. If you'd like to listen live and it's easy for you on the World Wide Web for whatever reason, it's got to be a little clandestine because you're at the office, or maybe it's just easier in your own house to have, your phone plugged in or whatever it is, 1029ESPN.com. That's where you go, 1029ESPN.com. You can listen live. On the Listen Live tab, it is there. Thanks to Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. If you want to pick up your phone and call, you can do so. 329-1899, 329-1899, the phone number. All guests join us via the Rangich Brothers RV phone line. Let's take a look at what we got in the show today. We're going to separate this out. Local, national. Hour one, local. Okay? Hour one, state of Montana stuff. We start with Dante Olson, who won the Buck Buchanan Award on Friday night as the nation's best defender in the FCS level, and did so in historic fashion. Really one going away ultimately when all the votes were tallied. So we will go through that, and a huge night for him, and certainly a feather of the cap of the Grizzly program in general. And so it's the biggest award you can get as a defensive player at this level of football. He's the third Grizzly to do so. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Also, we're going to get into basketball. The Montana State basketball teams played Portland State on Saturday. Now the Grizzly teams get Portland State tonight. The Montana men back in Missoula for the first time in a couple of weeks, a week and a half or so after a 3-game road swing. They are at Dahlberg Arena tipping off at 7 o'clock against the Vikings, and then the Lady Grizz on the road in Portland. So we'll go through all that stuff. At the top of the hour, we get into the national championship of the FCS level. NDSU winning 28-20 in a heartbreaker for James Madison. They were on the doorstep trying. They would have had to get a 2-point conversion as well to tie it, but an interception with a couple of seconds left to seal the deal for NDSU. So they have won their 8th now national championship. Again, the unprecedented run, just breaking new barriers as they go. 16-0, perfect on the season, and absolutely unbelievable. By the way, Trey Lance wins the Walter Payton Award, the first freshman ever to win the Walter Payton Award, which is effectively the FCS Heisman Trophy, as the best player in the country. So congratulations to him and to the North Dakota State Bison. We'll get into that. We also will get into all the things that happened in the divisional round. I never, ever have seen something close to what I saw yesterday early afternoon in the Kansas City-Houston game. That is unprecedented. It went from stunning to riveting to boring. And just completely amazing. So we'll get into that. Obviously, the Green Bay-Seattle game, and set you up for championship weekend next Sunday. So we'll get into that. And yes, there is another national championship tonight. The LSU Tigers and the Clemson Tigers from the Superdome in New Orleans. We will have that for you here on ESPN Radio as soon as the show is over. So there you go. That's our show outlook. Looking forward to bringing a ton of stuff going on. Hi, Coulter.
What's up, Gus?
Oh, just a little radio, a little sports talk radio here on a pretty boring weekend. Not much going on.
It was a great weekend. It was an unbelievable weekend of football, certainly, and affirming in a lot of ways, and also very surprising, particularly with the Baltimore Ravens getting dismantled. That was quite surprising. But we'll get to the NFL. The weekend got kicked off with pretty resounding fashion, though, with Dante Olson winning the buck. I thought it was cool to see him do it. There's a lot of stuff I want to say about the selection process and this awards ceremony, but I don't want that to take away from first acknowledging this kid. So we'll talk about him first, and then I'll give my criticisms of everything else about it. But I thought it was there's a lot of different ways to measure all of this stuff. I think that the FCS is still really striving to have national relevancy. I don't know what it's going to take for it to truly cross the threshold to being relevant to outside of just the places that have really passionate fan bases, like in Montana, like in North Dakota. I don't really know what it's going to take, but I've monitored this award for close to 15 years now, and there seems to always be some sort of asterisk or some sort of criticism people have of the award. And I think when you got 152 voters voting on players from across the country, and because the FCS doesn't have a national coverage model. I mean, the guys at Stats do a great job, and the guys at Hero Sports do a great job, but we're only talking about 4 humans. It's not as if I can go catch up on everything that happens in the FBS. Of course. I can go watch College Game Day, and I know everything that happened across the country. There's not something like that.
Well, there's not even such a thing as like highlights, really,
right,
that you can.
And so that's the thing, is a lot of times you're voting with your heart more than your eyes. And I cannot say that I watched all 25 Buck Buchanan finalists play football live this year. I cannot say that as one of the voters. And I really think you'd be hard-pressed to find any of the 152 people that voted in this that have. That said, I have watched the Big Sky Conference for quite some time. And we followed FCS football for quite some time. And sometimes the eye test just doesn't lie. And you can talk about the statistics and where they come from and how stats are kept on the defensive side of the ball. There's all sorts of different ways you can poke holes in this. At the end of the day, when I watched Dante Olson play at Autzen Stadium in Eugene, Oregon, he was the best defensive player on the field. And Oregon has multiple guys, including Trey Dye, who are going to get drafted in the NFL. They have the best offensive line in the country, or one of, at least, the best offensive lines in the country. And Dante Olson was making plays that weren't just like spunky plays for the FCS guy. He was straight laying dudes out. He's an unbelievable player. Statistics aside, I've never seen someone that can hit with the authority that he can hit with in the hole. There's all sorts. Cole Anderson was a great hitter. People that watch Tim Houck back at Montana back in the late 80s, they call him the hitter. Hitter Houck. And those guys coming downhill at you 15 yards, the way that they can tackle you in the open field and light you up over the middle, impressive. But in terms of a guy who is standing in his stance, less than 10 yards from the ball carrier, but then can still, with the way he can throw his hips and decleat somebody in the hole after shedding a block, I've never seen anybody like Dante Olson. And it wasn't as if he just did it a handful of times. He did it like 4 or 5 times a game. And so I was very happy to see him win. When I was watching this, I was like, man, I've watched Rondell Carter play. I've watched the kid from Nicholls State play. Yeah. They're really good players. They got sacks, which I think, to me, in my opinion, is a more important statistic than overall tackles. Yeah. But I was, in my heart, I just kept thinking, man, this is going to really suck if Dante Olson doesn't win this, because it's like when Cooper Kupp didn't win the Walter Payton Award his second year. He won it as a junior. He didn't win it as a senior. And all I kept thinking was, like, this dude is going to go be a Pro Bowler in the NFL. He needs to have all the accolades so people can look back and retrospectively remember how great he was. I'm so glad that Dante Olson got to cap his career by winning this award.
I've used this metaphor before with various guys, but I think it's certainly apropos here. But in boxing, they talk about guys who are heavy-handed, where for whatever reason, when they throw a punch, it just hits harder and it's not even necessarily about speed or size or technique, or maybe it's a combination of them all. But certain guys just know how to throw a punch through a target rather than to a target. That's Dante Olson, man. Like whoever he hits, it's going the direction that he wants it to go, not the other way around.
Absolutely,
just without fail. And so you're absolutely right. And it's remarkable. I mean, he is a big, strong kid. Okay, no question. I mean, he's 6'3", he's
245,
45. He's a big dude. He plays bigger than that. Like what you see looks like 260 happening to a guy rather than 240, and that's the I guess the special part of what he is as a finisher in that way. Not to mention his side to side speed, his range, and all of that, and regardless of scheme, regardless of stats, whatever. Like you said, the eye test it delivers the truth, and in this case, it's Dante Olson.
Well, we talked about the great linebackers that have played at Montana, just even in the last 10 years, but over the last 20, over the last 30. And, I did my all-decade team last week, and we talked about that on the radio. And we talked about the concept of how a lot of guys, their reputations get fortified now that the complete story is in the book. It's finished. The chapter is closed. When you look at Jordan Tripp, now you can look at Jordan Tripp and say this guy was a two-time first-team All-Big Sky guy who got drafted, who then played in the NFL for multiple years, and he started a handful of games in the league. You look at Brock Coyle, you say this guy was 3-year starter at Montana. He played in a Super Bowl. He started games for both the Seahawks and the 49ers, who both have reputations as some of the best defenses in the league. Yeah. You look at Caleb McSurdy. He was the 2011 Defensive Player of the Year. I think McSurdy, more than any of those other guys, he's got that irreverence that you want from a linebacker. He's got the mean streak. Brock's a very competitive guy, very confident guy, and he plays with a little bit of an edge. It's hard to say that Jordan Tripp doesn't play with an edge because he was in the league, but he's a very nice guy. He's very similar in personality to Dante Olson, where they're kind of just affable, really kind humans. McSurdy had that edge, but it remains to be seen what Dante Olson's career becomes from this point forward. If he tests with the numbers that I have heard that he's put up when they do their spring conditioning tests, he's absolutely going to be a top 150 draft pick, and he could play his way into close, in that 4th, 5th round range. I do think that there's been a trend lately in the FCS. I mean, guys like Cooper Kupp and Tremaine Johnson were absolutely no question getting drafted, and they still slipped to the 3rd round because people just know that you cannot waste one of your first. You shouldn't say waste, but you don't have to use one of your first 2 or 3 picks on guys out of the FCS. You just don't. But I still do think that Dante Olson could be in that 4th, 5th round range. We'll see how that influences the way we think of his career at Montana. But I'll say this. I grew up with Jordan Tripp my whole life. I consider him, he's one of my brother's good friends. He's like a brother to me. I have known Brock since he first came to campus. We used to work landscaping together. I love those guys on a personal level, and that does influence the way you think and remember guys, certainly. But Dante Olson is the best player that I've seen at Montana. He's the best player. I mean, in terms of his consistent ability to make eye-opening, jaw-dropping plays, the motor he plays with, the instincts that he plays with, his pre-snap and post-snap recognition, and the way he runs combined with the explosiveness and the size, he's absolutely the best guy Montana's had at linebacker, and that's saying a great deal because you're talking about a lineage of guys that were first-team All-League, defensive MVPs, and NFL guys. So congratulations to Dante Olson because he absolutely deserved it, and it made me so happy that he was able to cap his career.
Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. During the ceremony receiving it, Dante Olson said, quote, "Football is a team game. This is an incredible individual award, but I couldn't be more thankful for the team I was surrounded with last year. Each and every individual that was around me had a huge impact on me. We had a very successful year as a team, and I couldn't be more thankful to them and the coaching staff that helped me achieve this goal of mine." So there you go. By the way, just for what it's worth, Dante Olson wins the buck. 36 first place votes. The way this works, Colter, now correct me if I'm wrong, you select, if you're a voter, your top 5 in order: first place, second place, third place, fourth place, fifth place, all the way through. And then there's an inverse tally. So if you get a first place vote, it's worth 5, second place worth 4, and so on. And so he ended up with 36 first place votes, 25 second place votes, and on down the line, totaled up 363 points. Rondell Carter of James Madison had 27 first place votes, so 9 less, and finished with 275 total points. So almost 100 points less, 92 points less than Dante Olson. Sully Lake, I believe, is that you say Lake? Leitchie?
I never really was clear.
Laiche from Nichols, defensive end there. 21 first place votes for him and 235 total points. But, I mean, ultimately, Dante Olson won the Buck handily. I mean, when Tyrone Holmes won it in 2007, he did not even receive the most first place votes. And I think he won by like 2 total points, which is, I think it was as close as any voting has been. This is the 25th Buck Buchanan Award that's been given out. So, by the way, just to kind of put a bow on this from a Montana lineage standpoint, 2 other guys have won the Buck Buchanan from the University of Montana. As I mentioned, Tyrone Holmes in 2015 and then Croy Bierman in 2007. They have had a decent number of guys who've been finalists for this award. Andy Pedic and Vince Huntsberger in back-to-back years, 2000 and 2001, were both runners-up for the Buck in those 2 respective years. Trey Young was a finalist. Croy Bierman a finalist the year before he won it in 2006. Jermaine Johnson in 2010 and 2011. Jordan Tripp in 2012 and 2013. Josh Buss in 2017. So there's the kind of list. And then Dante Olson as well last year was a finalist for the award, which he did not win. So, again, since 2000, you're talking about almost 10 guys, certainly 10 or 11 different years with about 8 or 9 different guys that have been there, but only 3 winners. I mean, it's a big deal to kind of actually get it. You know what I mean? And that's impressive and deserved, like you said.
And this gets into then my, I don't know, gripe is the wrong word, but I mean, first of all, while I'm making this point, I want you to count up how many guys got top 3 votes and how many guys got first place votes.
26 guys are on this list, and I only see 2 guys who did not receive a single first place vote. By the way, one of them finished 21st, and even Solomon Muhammad, who is a linebacker from Alcorn State, he got 4 fifth place votes and 1 first place vote, and no second, third, or fourth place votes.
So this comes down.
That's the thing that you're.
The gripe is that, first of all, since the rise of the internet over the last 10 to 12 years,
yeah,
the way that it used to be that they want lists to be out there to promote the sport, and I think that's great. But a list of 20 guys that are on the Buck Buchanan Award watch list comes out in July, and the only way that somebody can get added to the list is if someone from that specific institution, a media relations guy, a sports information director, really pushes and lobbies to get that guy added to the list. Bryce Sterk got added to the list this year, and justifiably so. He should have been, but he didn't get to be on the list for the whole time. He was only there late. But then there's also like Jonah Williams. It became very clear that Jonah Williams was going to be a unanimous first-team All-League guy, and then he ended up winning Big Sky MVP. Okay, so he gets added to the ballot late. But there's a whole... You can only vote for the guys that are on the ballot, and so if there's a guy that's deserving who's not on the ballot, you can't vote for them. I voted as George Obina as my co-Big Sky. I don't have a vote in the all-league stuff. That's only coaches. But in the team that I would have selected, I had George Obina sharing the Big Sky MVP with Dante Olson, defensive end from Sac State, not Jonah Williams. George Obina led the conference in sacks. Anybody that watched George Obina could tell you exactly the difference maker he was for Sac State. He's an animal. He's an awesome edge guy. He was the best edge guy I saw this year. That's including Bryce Sterk. He wasn't on the ballot. So I would have probably voted him in my top 5, maybe even my top 3. But I couldn't because he's not on there. That in itself is annoying. That process part needs to change. The second part is some of these guys are getting put on this list. They're getting lobbied for by their school and their conference in the offseason. It's great. Most of the people that vote in this are in the media relations field. Very few are quote-unquote objective sports writers or objective media members. Most of them are internal people.
Right.
So then you also see every guy got a first-place vote, right? Who gave the first-place vote to the guy who got 26th? Probably the guy who nominated him.
Right. I mean, how can you have guys that are not even in the top 10 to finish all getting votes as the guy to win it?
That's what I'm saying.
That is crazy.
And that's what I'm saying.
The Homer part of this that you see.
And again, I'm not saying that, like, if you're the sports information director from Alcorn State who had nominated that kid and you believe he should win it and you saw every game he played, vote for him. That's fine. I just think that there should be more breadth in who you can vote for, and there should also be more voters that are not related to schools, because every time that someone votes for one of those guys that finished 23rd through 25th, it takes away a vote from Dante Olson, or it takes away a vote from Rondell Carter. Mm-hmm. And we've seen it in the past where maybe the guy who, it's hard to say that if you win this award, you didn't deserve it, but there's been some awards where it didn't necessarily go to the guy that I think everybody thought were going to win it.
Yeah.
So I think that there's just a little bit of a skewed.
Well, I mean, it's on you're right, and again, it is. I think the bigger point here is that it's a bit of a plight for FCS football in general that doesn't have the ready. I mean, look, man, it's hard enough to think about, well, who should win the Heisman. I mean, hardly anybody is watching, quote unquote, all the games, even full games of even the top 5 guys at the FBS level, even though you can have access to those games. I mean, how many times have I watched Joe Burrow play football this year? 5? Yeah, probably 5 times.
Totally.
And great. And like, okay, I mean, this is the narrative that you know, Kirk Herbstreit and ESPN, Fox Sports, whatever, delivers to you. And I got no problem with that. They analyze the stuff, they do this, that's great. But, I mean, even that is restricted. I mean, there's 160 teams.
100%.
You know?
100%. But also, it's different because the Heisman voting is done by former winners and people that are on the Heisman
That's
Trophy.
Right.
And
yeah.
so if you, most people that have a Heisman vote, it's their obligation to go and watch the stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like it's our obligation as well as voters. But how do I watch a Nichols game that's not on when it's not in the playoffs?
Mm-hmm. Right.
I voted in the final FCS poll today, and I felt it was the most comfortable I felt in any poll I put together, because I could say with confidence that I watched every single team that I voted for's most recent game, because they were all in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I voted for the 24 teams that made the playoffs and just ordered them. You know what I mean? Like, so, but I
where did NDSU finish?
How about this? A 16-0 season to extend what is already an FCS record winning streak.
Yeah.
But these guys not only went wire to wire in the polls, but they started in July by being the unanimous number 1 overall pick, and they ended by being the unanimous overall number 1 team in the country.
Pretty good.
James Madison stole about a dozen votes throughout the year, but they went wire to wire and bookended it unanimously.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Pretty good for a down year. It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Let's get into some basketball stuff. It's game night in the state of Montana. Montana Grizzlies hosting Portland State. This after Portland State played Montana State in an outstanding, epic basketball game. So we'll get into some hoops right after this.
Hey there, Colter Nuanez from your favorite daily sports talk show, Tutel Nuanez. I'm here with Tom from Aspen Sound. Tom, last winter I got a sweet car starter. It's something I think everybody needs.
You know, Colter, I couldn't agree more, and my wife sure thinks so too. We've got a lot of sweet deals. We actually have it capable now where you can start it from your phone from anywhere you'd like. We have two-way remotes that'll confirm to you the vehicle started, all the way down to our basic package starting at just $299 installed. Come on in and check us out.
Feel the music at Aspen Sound.
Hey, it's Coulter, and I'm here with Catherine from The Advocates. If you've been in a car accident or need help dealing with the insurance companies, you should give The Advocates a call. They can tell you if you have a case right over the phone.
That's right. It doesn't cost anything to call, and we'd be happy to talk to you and assess your situation. You don't want to have to deal with contacting the insurance companies and setting up a claim. We can do that for you. We take the hassle out of the process, so you can just focus on getting better.
There you go, folks. If you've been injured in an accident, give The Advocates a call, 406-640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. You deserve The Advocates.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Grizz Greats, The Coaching Tree, brought to you by Blackfoot, is a new podcast series from ESPN Missoula. Judd Heathcote, Mike Montgomery, Larry Kristoviak, and others have led the men's Grizzly basketball teams over the years. Ryan Tutel and Colter Nuanez sat down with every Grizz basketball coach, from Jim Brandenburg to current head coach Travis DeCure, to talk about what makes Montana basketball and Missoula so special. The first episode will be available Wednesday, January 15th, wherever you enjoy podcasts.
Welcome to today's lottery drawing. And today's winning numbers are not yours, not yours, and another number that's not yours. And the final number is not yours.
When it comes to having money, don't rely on luck. Brew your own coffee at home instead of buying that latte. Brown bag it to work instead of ordering it. Go to feedthepig.org for more free ideas on how to save. Feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
Most of my family, they never graduated high school, so I'm trying to break that barrier. My daughter, Brooklyn, was also a motivation for me to go back to school. Every day after work, went straight to school, and it paid off.
At age 26, Kareem finished his high school diploma.
I could not have done it alone. I see the future is really bright for me.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good evening, Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez. Some sports news. Here we go. Grizz consensus All-American linebacker Dante Olson cemented his college football legacy Friday night, becoming just the third Grizz to win the Buck Buchanan Award as the best defensive player in the FCS. Olson finished with 36 first-place votes and 363 total points, beating Rondell Carter of James Madison, who had 27 first-place votes and 270 points to finish second. Troy Bierman in 2007 and Tyrone Holmes in 2015 are the two other Montana alums to win the award.
Well, Big Sky point guard Holland Woods converted a layup with 2 seconds left to lift Portland State to a 77-76 Big Sky Conference victory over Montana State in Bozeman Saturday. MSU's Harold Frey, who made a shot with 12 seconds left to give the Bobcats a 1-point lead, misfired on a half-court shot at the buzzer. The loss dropped MSU to 3-3 in Big Sky play, 5-2 at home, 9-8 overall, despite the 26 points from Frey. Woods poured in a season-high 30 points to help PSU snap a 3-game conference losing streak.
The Vikings are now 2-3 in league play, 3-7 on the road, and 8-9 overall as they make their way to Missoula to take on leading Montana tonight. Portland State has been a thorn in UM side as of late. The Vikes swept the Grizzlies last year's, including a 77-74 overtime win in Missoula. The Grizz are 4-1 in the league after their 90-63 win over Eastern.
This ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound.
Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. A pleasant Monday to you as we get you set for, well, all kinds of things around the state of Montana and also the national championship in the FBS coming up after this show is over. We'll send you down to Louisiana for the final game of the college football season, LSU and Clemson. Colter, we talked about it a little bit there in the news read, but Montana State in an absolute barn burner with Portland State on Saturday, and now Portland State comes to Missoula tonight to take on the Grizzlies. The Portland State men are 2-3 on the season, but they beat Montana State 77-76 Holland Woods was able to do one better than Harold Frey. Harold Frey got the game-leading bucket with 12 seconds to go to make it 76-75 for Montana State, and then Holland Woods with 2 seconds left, scoop and score, able to finish off the Bobcats. And so Montana State is now 3-3 on their season, and Portland State lifts up to 2-3. Tonight, if you're going to the game in Missoula, enjoy yourself, because Holland Woods, he is a fun. He's worth the price of admission to go watch Holland Wood play, not to mention the now conference-leading 4-1 Montana Grizzlies.
Yeah, absolutely. And not as if Boo Boo Woods is listening to this show, but if he by chance is, since I guess they are in Missoula, so maybe they do have it on ESPN Radio. I don't know. But I have been sort of grumbling about the lack of premier talent in the league this year. But the one guy that I got to apologize to is Holland Woods, because we have listed frequently the Harold Freys and Jarek Hardings and Saeed Pridgetts of the world, but I have not listed Holland Woods. And, I mean, let's say it exactly how it is. Portland State has been one of the better teams in the league the last couple of years, and it's been because of Holland Woods. I mean,
and they have been the team to beat Montana.
I mean, Portland State swept the Grizz last year. They're the only team that swept the Grizz last year. The Grizz lost 4 conference games at Eastern Washington, the Monday night at home to Northern Colorado after the Cat game, and then they lost twice to Portland State. And Portland State, I mean, they finished 4th in the league last year.
Yeah.
And they have their best and most important player back, and he's no longer an underclassman. And Holland Woods was the freshman of the year in the league 2 years ago. He's a second-team All-League guy on an absolutely stacked. I mean, there was 6 guards last year in the league that were worthy of first-team All-League honors, and he was one of the guys that pulled second team, him and Harold Frey. But Holland Woods is an outstanding player, and so when I say that there's not a lot of premier players, that's one guy I really, really overlooked, and I apologize for that. But Portland State has a lot of talent as well. But I one beef with the Thursday, Monday. Who gets the Saturday to Saturday? You're never going to make anybody happy when you have a 12-team league. It's just not going to happen. And I get that it's all a formula, and at the end of the day, someone's going to have to play games at odd times or atypical times. I get that. The one thing as administrators of college athletics that you should be cognizant of is when there's huge events, they're going to kill attendance. And I'm not saying that Montana should get any sort of favoritism. The Grizz draw better than anybody in the league. So to say we're going to let the Grizz not have a Monday game the night of the national championship, I get that you don't want to go out of your way to give one team an advantage. It just should be a thing that's talked about at the league meetings where you say, okay, of all the Saturday Mondays that we might put on the docket, let's not have a Saturday Monday where anybody, Montana or Portland State or anyone else, has to play on Monday night when there's a national championship game. Montana's still going to draw a couple thousand people. But what if this game was in northern Arizona or southern Utah? You'd have like 400 people there. It's they're not paying attention to the right things. If you want to build the brand, you have to do better.
That was your Burn Street Bistro Burn of the Week.
I completely agree with you on this.
Again, it sounds like I'm coming at this from a Montana perspective. Montana shouldn't have to play on Monday night. No, that's not what I'm saying. No one should have to play on Monday night of the national championship game. Yep. There's 12 other Mondays that could possibly be just when you're putting your thing in the matrix of the Excel sheet that you're going to then have all your potential outcomes. Just X off this date for everybody.
You know, it's interesting because what did we talk with? I think it was Ron Lockery that we were speaking with at the time, Coulter, who was the senior executive in the Big Sky Conference. And particularly when it came to making this new schedule that's now 2 years old, where it was going to be a true round robin, which, look, man, this is the right thing to have. You need to have in your conference a home and home with every team in the conference. It's just the way it's got to be. And so totally. they have managed to do that, and that's great. To decide to do it in this way came by, I think they had like 70-plus iterations of schedules.
I think when it was first coming around, it was more like 95,
maybe 90, yeah,
like something crazy.
Just so many different things that they tried to like figure out and tweak, because while the playing is symmetric, the schedule is not, and so it's hard to fit it all in the time space that you have. So I understand that, and to then all of a sudden go, on a more fine grain sort of assessment of it to start talking about things that don't even, quote, pertain to you and what you're doing. It's like, all right. But, man, like, nobody, you don't schedule a bake sale on Super Bowl Sunday.
Right.
Like, everybody just knows, well, no. Like, you don't do that because no one's going to the thing.
And to me, it's just a complete lack of thought and engagement, because it's not just about the attendance. Not only is the national championship football game tonight going to make the Montana men's basketball game have less people attending. That's one factor. But the other factor is, first of all, these are college athletes. You're about to see the best of the best in college football tonight, with LSU and Clemson taking the field.
Right.
Everybody involved, whether you are involved in a football program or otherwise, should want to watch this game so that you can see how the best of the best do it and try to bring it into your realm of operation, especially when you're talking about the Big Sky Conference. You should want your student athletes to watch the best of the best. You should want your administrators and coaches to see how things go about. I mean, I get that it's basketball season, but watching the game tonight, you could certainly learn something from Ed Orgeron or Dabo Swinney.
Right.
From any perspective. You should just want to see how they operate. And I just think that if you want to continue to collectively grow the game, and you want, especially when you're talking about a mid-major league like the Big Sky, that's a mid-major in basketball and an FCS in football, you need to look at the people that are doing it at the largest level, and you need to take from that. Mm-hmm. And so I think that it would be beneficial to everybody, not only from an attendance perspective, but also just from an observation perspective, to not have a game tonight so that everybody, all eyes can be on the best of the best.
Yeah, for sure. It's Tuchel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Coulter, let's go to the court. Let's start with Montana State and Portland State, because they played this game on Saturday. The Cats and the Vikings did, and Portland State won an absolute barn burner. This game was in Bozeman, is that right? Yeah.
It was in Bozeman, yep, Saturday.
At Montana State. 77-76 the final. Holland Woods, 30 points, including the game winner, overshadowing an unbelievable performance again by Harold Frey, who had 26 points, and what was the presumptive possible game winner with 12 seconds to go. So this thing went back and forth, and Portland State ends up getting the victory. Montana State, man, this is crazy. So they're 3-3 in the Big Sky Conference. They've won one game by 2 points. They've won another game by 3 points, and then they had a big win. They've also lost one game by 6 points, 6 points, I guess. And then this game last night by 1 point. I mean, they have been playing some really close basketball games and split those as far as it goes. But Portland State, here's the oddity of the Big Sky Conference for you. They opened with Northern Colorado, won against UNC, 69-65. Then went on the road and lost by 2 to a good Southern Utah team, but then went on the road and lost by 11 to Idaho, who look for all the world like they might not even be, they might be 12 out of 12 in the Big Sky Conference. Now, they're better than that, it looks like, at this point, but they
got this random 7-footer who no one knew they had him, or no one saw him coming.
Then they go to Eastern and lose by 2, but then they go to Montana State and win by 1. So they've played a slew of close games, but they've beat a couple of good teams in Montana State and Northern Colorado, and then had a couple of games where you're like, well, what's going on here? So Portland State, look, man, this is the Big Sky Conference. I don't know if I've seen a year, and I expect this trend to continue, in which there's less to take from how teams do against each other. This is going to be a straight up night in, night out, what's the matchup today type of league, because you could try and read into it what you will. Oh, they beat this team. Oh, they lost to that team. There's nothing to know. There's nothing to know. You can beat anybody and lose to anybody, and it's going to have next to no influence whatsoever on what happens tonight in whatever game it is that you got in this conference. And tonight, that game turns out to be Montana versus Portland State. Now, the Grizzlies, they're riding high. They're coming off a 27-point beatdown of the team that was supposed to be the best or the other best team in the Big Sky Conference. Travis DeCure talked a little bit about why he thought that was. I'm very interested to see. Travis makes a lot out of coming off a loss, we have their attention. Mm-hmm. This isn't the first time he's talked about that, but he said after the loss to Northern Colorado, we knew we had the kids' engagement because they lost a basketball game.
Right.
I'm interested to see, after not just a win, but a whooping on another team that's expected to be a contending team, call it a 3-point road victory, according to Travis DeCuire's matrix for counting them up. How much attention do you have and do you pay to Portland State? Because I think those are the games, getting a big win after a loss is great, but can you back it up? Can you prove it against a good Portland State team, but that's got a premier player on it?
I'm interested to see, too, if Portland State is still playing the same haphazard 40 minutes of hell, pressing up and down style. The numbers, to me, that they're putting up are not indicative of that. They've scored in the 80s a couple times, but most of their games have been in the 70s, and they haven't been forcing as many turnovers. But then I also look at their roster, and besides Holland Woods and then Alonzo Walker, who's the most random grad transfer in the league, he went from Idaho State to Portland State. I've never seen a grad transfer in the league who's eligible right away. But Alonzo Walker did it. Alonzo Walker was a very good player last year at Idaho State. He's long. He's just what Barrett Peary wants as far as the head of the snake, the guy who is guarding the inbounder. But I'm interested to see if they're still playing that same style or not. But I also think that Portland State's going to be an interesting team this year because they have such a gigantic factor of the unknown. I don't recognize a single other player on their roster.
Right.
They did graduate a couple guys. They also did have the unfortunate loss, Deontay Strickland, who was their other combo guard. Mm-hmm. He got shot and killed in the offseason, which was a horrible tragedy, which is the third Portland State athlete to die in the last couple of years, which in itself is horrible. It's so sad for the entire athletic department. But the reason that Portland State has given Montana problems the last couple of years is, I don't know, would you agree with this? Generally in college basketball, especially conference games, the team who dictates the style is the team that has the advantage.
No question.
And Portland State has gotten Montana. Montana enforces their style and makes other teams play their style, except against Portland State. And we've seen some games where, like 2 years ago at Portland State, where the Grizz got all sorts of sped up and they wanted to play up and down with Portland State, and Travis DeCuire just put the ball in Michael Oguine's hands and said, get out the way. And the Grizz escaped with a 3-point win behind 39 points from Oguine, but it was certainly not a typical Grizz game. But then last year in Missoula, they got into a slugfest, and Portland State still was able to outlast them. And then in Portland State dictated the pace of the game again and beat Montana again. The notion that if you have one of the best players on the court, that you have a chance in basketball is more true for Portland State than anybody else in the league. Harold Frey can go off, certainly. Syed Pridgett can go off, certainly. But because Holland Woods is the dude with the ball in his hands, and he's one of the best point guards in terms of being able to score the rock and facilitate. He's not just a pure passer. He's not just a pure scorer. He does both. He had 30 points on Saturday in Bozeman. He also had 6 assists. He's been the league leader in assists the last 2 years while still averaging 17-plus points per game. He's averaging 21 a game in conference play right now while still being a 5-plus assist guy. There's no one else in the league like that.
Yeah.
And the thing about Holland Woods is he's got that gamer mentality. When it's a big game, especially when he sees Montana on the front of the jersey, you can almost guarantee you he's going to play his best.
The other thing, too, Coulter, Barrett Peary is a guy that probably not a lot of people around here know a ton about. Look, I don't know a ton about Barrett Peary. He's in his 3rd year as the Portland State head coach. But I remember when we were in Nevada, Reno, and Portland State, I think they won a game that they barely weren't expected to win, and then had a really good second-round game that they eventually lost. But we talked with Braxton Tucker, who was a senior on that team, and it was Barrett Peary's first year.
And we also talked to Brandon Hollins. Brandon Hollins was the former kind of head of the snake guy that was guarding the inbounds pass.
And those, when you have a change at the head coach spot, which, of course, the players have no control over.
Right.
And especially when it's your senior season, and you're riding out with this one, it's kind of tough. And sometimes coaches, they're going to come in and do what they can in that first year, but they often are trying to, adjust, whether it's the culture, the way a team plays, or whatever it might be. But man, you got the sense that these kids just love Barrett Peary, and just one season with him, and a season that had its ups and downs, frankly, for Portland State. in that 2016-17 year, or 17-18, excuse me. And, I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, I can tell you like X's and O's wise or scheme wise, like who the best coaches are or whatever in the Big Sky Conference. But in terms of, I think, player buy-in and what he's trying to accomplish there, I think Barrett Peary's really good. He's really good about that stuff. And generally, he's got kids that want to play for him, that go out and give energy on the floor. And I think that that's something that I'll be looking forward to tonight, is seeing, like you said, like has been said before. I mean, anytime you're playing Montana, especially in Missoula, usually teams get up for that game. And yet, this is a team that seems to get up for a lot of games. So who knows what happens, but I think it's going to be a fun game tonight, a high-energy game tonight, and I think I'm very interested to see, coming off a huge win, even more than coming off a loss, how Montana plays tonight, against a good team with a premier player.
Barrett Peary's a player's coach for sure, but they have a defined system that he has the ability to recruit to, and so he can get those high-energy guys. The other guy worth watching is Matt Hauser. He's averaging about 15 points per game, but he's a grad transfer from Santa Clara. He started 57 games at Santa Clara and averaged at nearly 10 points per game at Santa Clara. So he's a guy that was productive at a high level in a good league, a comparable league to the Big Sky Conference, to be sure. But Peary comes from the Bill Evans coaching tree. Peary played for Bill Evans at Southern Utah. Bill Evans, for people in Missoula that are listening, former University of Montana assistant, who then coached Idaho State. Coached Southern Utah forever before they were in the Big Sky, and then coached Idaho State the last 8 years. But Bill Evans he's a no-nonsense type of guy, but also a guy that brings you in and puts his arm around you at the end of the day. And I know his players revered him a great deal too, and Peary is very along those same lines. But Travis DeCuire's quote after the Eastern Washington game I thought was so telling to what the attitude and identity is and what Montana wants their attitude and identity to be. He said, "We need people in the league to be nervous when they play us."
Right.
Anybody that's been around Travis DeCuire, he has an unbelievable presence.
Yes.
He's an intimidating person. He just because of the way he is so steadfast in his vision, the no-nonsense demeanor that he has, the gruff sort of way of being that he has. And I think that a lot of teams in the Big Sky, their coaches are scared of Travis DeCuire, and teams are scared of Montana. That's the thing that I think that gives Portland State an intangible that most of the other teams in the league have. Barrett Peary's not scared of anybody, and neither is Holland Woods. And I'm not saying that these guys are like shaking in their boots before they play, but Montana,
there's a certain intimidation when you walk into the building.
Montana has a couple basket advantage over Northern Arizona every time out.
Right.
But why? There's only a couple coaches that aren't, and the style is reflective. I mean, why does Sac State play so well against Montana? Because Brian Katz is a veteran coach. He's not scared of Coach DeCuire, and it's a real factor. But Barrett Peary is in that same vein. And it will be a very entertaining basketball game tonight at Dahlberg Arena.
It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Quick break. On the other side, Montana State. Talked about their game a little bit, but how does this set up for them as they have now a week off to prepare for Eastern Washington coming down the pike? We'll get into that in just a moment. Hey, the Polaris New Year's sales event is on, and it's on now. So time to find your perfect ride at Kurtz Polaris with financing as low as 3.99% APR for 36 months and savings up to $3,500. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula is on Highway 83 in Sealy. The mountains, they're full of snow and more is coming. Kurtz has all the best machines, apparel, and accessories to take full advantage of the season. Online at KurtzPolaris.com. The most fun you can have in snow. Kurtz Polaris. Winter awaits. In Western Montana, we know shopping local matters, and you may think you'd pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it, but not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with knowledgeable specialists that can answer your questions. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at SelwayArmory.com.
It's easy to make healthy choices with Florence Coffee's variety of organic milk alternatives for your favorite beverage. Whether you have dietary needs or you just want to try something different, Florence Coffee carries organic oat, soy, and almond milks. Enjoy that smooth Florence Coffee flavor with milk alternatives. Stop by any of our locations in Western Montana or go to FlorenceCoffeeCo.com.
Florence Coffee Company.
There's a saying, opportunity never knocks twice. When you're ready to take advantage of your next opportunity, look to your local bank. Opportunity Bank of Montana. Opportunity Bank offers options for mortgage loans, small business loans, equipment financing, agriculture, and more. Our experienced team can provide solutions to help you welcome your next big opportunity. There's nothing like the feeling of progress. So let's get started today. Come see us at your local Opportunity Bank of Montana. OpportunityBank.com, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Hockey season is in full swing, and this year, whether you're playing in a league or just enjoying watching the Missoula Junior Bruins in action, the Desperado Sports Tavern has your pre- and post-game covered. Located just down the street from the ice rink, the Desperados Hot Wings are consistently voted Missoula's best. They are also celebrated for their delicious burgers and extensive selection of beers, plus they've got all the pro hockey games on every night. So grab your friends, bring your appetite, and come warm up at the Desperado, located on South Russell across from the Y.
Grizz Greats, The Coaching Tree, brought to you by Blackfoot, is a new podcast series from ESPN Missoula. Judd Heathcote, Mike Montgomery, Larry Kristoviak, and others have led the men's Grizzly basketball teams over the years. Ryan Tutel and Coulter Nuanez sat down with every Grizz basketball coach, from Jim Brandenburg to current head coach Travis DeCure, to talk about what makes Montana basketball and Missoula so special. The first episode will be available Wednesday, January 15th, wherever you enjoy podcasts.
Most of my family, they never graduated high school, so I'm trying to break that barrier. My daughter, Brooklyn, was also a motivation for me to go back to school. Every day after work, went straight to school, and it paid off.
At age 26, Kareem finished his high school diploma.
I could not have done it alone. I see the future is really bright for me.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Tutel and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula.
Coming down, but it's you who have further to fall. Ghost town, haunted love. Raise your voice, sticks and stones may break my bones. Talking loud, not saying much. I'm bulletproof.
Montana State, they can enjoy the national championship tonight. They got no game. Played Portland State in a barn burner on Saturday, ultimately falling by 1. Now they got a week to get ready for Eastern Washington. It's Tutel and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. Great to be with you. Thanks for being here with us. Did want to mention, I know that we had some technical troubles over the weekend. Okay, if you're listening to the station, we were late in getting to the Seahawks-Packers game on account of, well, trouble on the tower, okay? I don't know about this stuff, but I hear the word explosion, and I go, well, that seems bad. So I don't know. I don't know exactly all what happened. We have been working pretty diligently to make sure that we're all set. We will certainly have the national championship for you tonight, but I know that that there was trouble over the weekend, and we worked on that, and I think have resolved our issues. But we certainly recognize that, apologize for it, and we're working to make sure that this is not an issue in the future, okay? So we're all on the same page. Coulter, Montana State.
A little plug,
yes,
concerning Montana State men's basketball, and also just concerning our covers going forward. I know we've been talking a lot of hoops lately, but we haven't had maybe necessarily the prevalence of the interviews that we have had in the past, and I think that there's a couple reasons for that. But first of all, football season lasted in Montana a lot longer than it has the last couple of years since we've been doing this show together. And we've been covering it, FCS football and just football in general, at a lot higher level ever since we added David to the team. So appreciate David for being back there and kind of guiding us and helping us steer the ship correctly, since we seem to sometimes meander and wreck it.
What? I don't buy any of that.
But what I'm saying is we got something set up now with Coach Dave Sprinkle that we're going to talk to him once a week for just kind of a recap of the weekend and a preview of the week to come.
Yep.
And we'll also be going and seeing Travis DeCuire and his players each and every week too. So anybody that's missing those interviews from the coaches, they shall return. We'll have once a week from each side, and it'll be a lot of fun.
And also, one of the other things too, we have been actually doing more basketball interviews than we've ever done before.
No doubt.
It just turns out that it's in the form of a podcast series, which we're releasing the day after tomorrow, the first of a 10-part series with another 10 sort of subparts to it, which I'm very excited about. Grizz Greats, the Coaching Tree podcast. We have interviewed all 9 living men's basketball coaches from the University of Montana, as well as Robin Selvig, for a series of podcasts that we're releasing. We start with this Wednesday with Jim Brandenburg. We're going to go in chronological order in terms of when they coached at the University of Montana. So we'll start with Coach Brandenburg, and then later on Friday, a couple of players, guys who played for Coach Brandenburg, as well as Judd Heathcote, as well as Mike Montgomery. There's always going to be a little overlap, guys playing for multiple coaches and so forth and so on, but really excited about this podcast series, and it's available thanks to Blackfoot Communications. Really appreciate them being a part of this, but we're excited about this podcast series. We will release it on Wednesday, and we're going to spend some time on Wednesday previewing Jim Brandenburg's episode and talking about what and who he was as an assistant coach and then as the head coach, and where he went on from there. But this is a great thing. I mean, the extent to which Montana coaches have been hugely successful in the profession of basketball coaching, both college and professional, really remarkable. So we're excited about this series to bring to you on Wednesday. Coulter, Montana State, as we mentioned, they lose by 1 point, a tough loss to Portland State. Now they have a week off to take on Eastern Washington. Eastern Washington, I don't know what their schedule looks like this week, but they're certainly licking their wounds after the Montana game. You expect them to bounce back and play with a heightened level of excitement and urgency and all of those things, energy. But they go to Montana State. The Bobcats, this sets up, in one sense it sets up well, in one sense it doesn't. I'd like to know your thoughts on this just briefly, 30 seconds. The loss to Portland State really hurts because you could have had a win and then a week off to get ready for, a really good opponent. But the loss is what it is. To have a week off before you get ready for Eastern Washington, if you win, it's great because then you paid the week off with a W against a good team. But if you lose, now it's back-to-back losses at home. That's tough with that week that I won't say it's wasted. I mean, you're getting better during that time, but it didn't pay off the way you wanted it to. How much pressure is there in this week for Montana State come a week from last Saturday? So they'll play this Saturday at home against the Eagles.
I still think Montana State's feeling their way out where they fit into the league picture, but I think that when you have one of the best players in the league and he's a senior like Montana State does in Harold Frey, the sense of urgency has to be high. And so I really do think that a win over Eastern Washington could certainly solidify a lot of things for Montana State. I also think that although Eastern Washington has a lot of hype around them, I thought Travis DeCuire's comments after the Eastern Washington game, he basically said these guys played some teams at home that they didn't blow out like they maybe thought they should, and we thought that they were vulnerable. And I just wonder if people around the league think that too. We saw the last 2 years how hard it is to be the favorite and get everybody's best shot. And it takes a special group to be able to endure that for not just one but 2 seasons like Montana did. Mm-hmm. But now that's the shoes the Eastern is filled, and you just wonder how they're going to react. And I just think that Harold Frey gives Montana State a chance every time out.
Correct.
You just wonder, it's funny to say this, but you just wonder when he's going to turn the corner shooting the ball. He's shooting the ball. He's only shooting 35% from beyond the arc. He's only shooting 33% in league play. As we know, like we saw in the opener against Utah State, Harold Frey can write his shooting percentage in the span of one game because he can go hit 7 or 8 in a row from beyond the arc. He hasn't had one of those crazy heat check games in league yet. He's had multiple 20-plus point games. His last 2, he's had 22 or more. But he hasn't had that game where he goes and hits 4, 5, 6 threes in a row. If and when that happens, look out if you're the rest of the league. Maybe a week off can help spark that sort of resurgence for Harold Frey and the Bobcats.
No doubt. So the Grizzlies tonight against Portland State at home. By the way, the Lady Grizz on the road at Portland State tonight as well. And then Montana State not in action again until Saturday against Eastern Washington. Take a break. Let's get into some football, shall we? I mean, my goodness, what a weekend it was. We'll talk about the FCS National Championship, the divisional round, and the FBS National Championship coming up in an hour from now. LSU and Clemson. Can't wait for it. We'll get there right after this. Hey, at the Silver Slipper, it's all about great food, tasty beverages, and their urge to have a good time. Whether you're looking for an affordable family meal or a late-night game of poker, the Silver Slipper has what you're looking for. Right now, Silver Slipper is your football headquarters. 56 TVs to watch sports on, drink specials every day, a full liquor store, Tarantino's Pizzeria, all of it at the Silver Slipper. They have what you need to watch all your favorite games, including tonight, the National Championship, if you'd like to. Visit the SilverSlipperLounge.com for more info and stop by today to see why the Silver Slipper is one of Montana's best-kept secrets with the friendliest staff in town, across the street from Super Walmart on Brooks.
Hi there. It's Les Schwab Tires. Well, more like Les Schwab alignment and brakes and shocks and wheels and tires. Now, some tire places don't offer all that. They only sell tires. And we're not sure how they sleep at night, because all those services affect things like steering and stopping. That's why we offer more than tires to help keep you safe. Stop by or book an appointment at leschwab.com. Les Schwab Tires, doing the right thing since 1952.
On Russell, across from the fairgrounds.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Town Pump, who pump it up.
Did you gain a little weight last year? Town Pump can help with that. They have Red Bull Energy 8.4 ounce, 3 for $5.33. And lettuce salads in the deli, only $3.99. Stop by your local Town Pump today. There's one just right down the road.
Town Pump, right down the road. Pump it up, yeah.
Welcome to today's lottery drawing. And today's winning numbers are not yours, not yours, and another number that's not yours. And the final number is not yours.
When it comes to having money, don't rely on luck. Brew your own coffee at home instead of buying that latte. Brown bag it to work instead of ordering it. Go to feedthepig.org for more free ideas on how to save. Feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
Hey guys, it's Ryan and Coulter from Tutel and Nuanez here to tell you about our brand new project that we are so excited to release, Grizz Greats, the Coaching Tree, the podcast series with all of the living coaches in the history of the University of Montana men's basketball team.
From the legendary godfather of the Coaching Tree, Judd Heathcote, a string of some of the most successful coaches in college basketball had their careers start at the University of Montana.
It really is a remarkable group when you sit back and think about it and what all of these guys have accomplished throughout their careers in the game. And Coulter, I'm excited because Wednesday, our first one comes out, Jim Brandenburg.
Brandenburg was only the head coach at Montana for 2 years, but he was certainly the bridge from Judd Heathcote to Mike Montgomery, and that set the stage for the rest of this tremendous coaching tree. We'll be excited each week throughout the winter and spring to roll out Grizz Greats, the Coaching Tree podcast.
Just search Grizz Greats wherever you get your podcasts and listen all season long. Grizz Greats, a Coaching Tree podcast, is brought to you by Blackfoot Communications.
If you are hurt or disabled, you may be entitled to benefits from an insurance company or Social Security. I'm Chris Helmer, an attorney at Clark Fork Law Offices. Our Missoula firm specializes in worker compensation, personal injury, and Social Security disability. There are many unknowns when injured or disabled. The other side is fighting hard. You should too. Call Clark Fork Law at 728-0168 for a free consultation or visit clarkforklaw.com. Again, 728-0168.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good evening, Ryan Tutel, Coulter Nuanez. Here's some sports news for you. Grizzly consensus All-American linebacker Dante Olson cemented his college football legacy Friday night, becoming just the third Grizz to win the Buck Buchanan Award as the best defensive player in the FCS. Olson finished with 36 first-place votes and 363 total points, beating Rondell Carter of James Madison, who had 27 first-place votes and 275 points to finish second. Troy Bierman in 2007 and Tyrone Holmes in 2015 are the two other Montana alums to win the award. All Big Sky point guard Holland Woods converted a layup with 2 seconds left to lift Portland State to a 77-76 Big Sky Conference victory over Montana State Saturday. MSU's Harold Frey made a shot with 12 seconds left to give the Bobcats a 1-point lead, but he misfired on a half quarter at the buzzer. The loss drops MSU to 3-3 in Big Sky play, 5-2 at home, and 9-8 overall, despite 26 points from Frey. Woods poured in a season-high 30 to help PSU snap a 3-game losing streak in conference.
The Vikings are 2-3 in league play, 3-7 on the road, and 8-9 overall as they make their way to Missoula to take on league-leading Montana tonight. Portland State has been a thorn in UM's side as of late. The Vikings swept the Grizz last year, including posting a 77-74 overtime win in Missoula behind 28 points from Woods. The Grizz 4-1 in league play.
This ESPN Sports Center is presented by Clark Ford Law.
Stretched towards you. I feel you on my fingertips. My tongue dances behind my lips for you.
Welcome back to Tell Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana around the state. Outstanding to be with you, broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. If you missed anything in the first hour, check it out on the podcast. The podcast available wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen to the Tutel and Nuanez podcast, and starting Wednesday, about the Grizz Greats Coaching Tree podcast. Podcast available thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel and Blackfoot Communications. Coulter, North Dakota State, won yet another national championship. It was a really good game, actually, ultimately. It wasn't that great early. It looked like it was going to be just NDSU again, but James Madison came all the way back. Some clock mismanagement, if you ask me, down the stretch, the last 60 seconds of that game. Nonetheless, they had first and goal on the 2 with 8 seconds left, something like this, and down 8. They needed a 2-point conversion. Throw an interception. Game over. NDSU wins again, which you kind of expected. It is such a phenomenon, man. For as good as James Madison was this season, North Dakota State has a culture in which, in big moments, when they get pressed, they just know that they're going to make a play to win the game. I mean, against South Dakota State, they have a 4th down that they need to convert, and they rip off a 70-yard touchdown. In this game, teams driving to make a victory, and or at least to tie to stay in the game, and they make an interception. It felt a little Clemson-y to me, actually. Clemson has won, 30 consecutive games now? Are they on a 30-game winning streak, something like this? And against Ohio State, who might have been the better team, frankly, in that football game, they needed to make a play. Ohio State's driving to take the lead back of the whole deal, and Clemson just sort of like, well, no, I mean, we will make a play. We know we're going to win this game. Now, I don't know about tonight. We'll talk more about it. But nonetheless, North Dakota State wins the game. Trey Lance takes home the Jerry Rice Award as well as the Walter Payton Award. He finished with 166 yards on 30 carries and a touchdown rushing in this game. That's the quarterback, people. He was only 6 of 10 through the air, but they really didn't need to be. They ran the ball a lot, and it was an outstanding performance once again from NDSU, who was way out in front of everybody.
First of all, how breathtaking, for lack of a better word, was Trey Lance's what proved to be the go-ahead game-sealing touchdown. I mean, it was a 44-yarder where he looked at absolutely. It was an encompassing look at just how physically superior he is to literally everyone on the field.
You asked rhetorically, really, in the last hour, and we've talked about this throughout. But what's it going to take for people that aren't associated with a team or a city to care about the FCS? And a lot of the talk has revolved around North Dakota State and the run, and is the streak good or not for the FCS and so forth and so forth. You know what the reality is? What's going to draw people in? Players. And if you got a kid in Trey Lance who is market NFL quarterback, okay, straight up, period. And especially with the precedence of a Carson Wentz having already been through here, he's not trying to break through any type of glass ceiling with the. I mean, shoot, the league has been full of FCS quarterbacks now. Okay, but when you talk about a kid who you're like, this guy's going. Why would you watch Wyoming play football 3 years ago, 2 years ago? Oh, they got a kid. They're talking about being a top 10 type of quarterback, playing football there. And that brings people in. And Trey Lance, he's that dude. I got no qualms.
Why do you think I went to Wyoming?
Right now.
It's a great point, especially here's the thing. I don't personally think that Trey Lance is as good of an NFL prospect as Carson Wentz, but that does not mean that I don't think he's a better college player, because he is. Because he can run. And that's so much more conducive in the college game and being more athletic than everyone else.
And now the NFL game, man.
No, absolutely. You're just going to be hard. Carson Wentz has one of the greatest arms on planet Earth. The first time I ever saw Carson Wentz throw a ball, the very first time, I was like, that kid is a first-round draft pick. I do not care what his statistics are. I do not care anything. He is a first-round draft pick because of the way he can throw it. You get him in front of scouts, he can throw it better than almost anybody. It's very similar to Josh Allen. Everybody was like, well, this kid threw for less than 2,000 yards at Wyoming. Why is he getting so much draft type? Well, you go watch him play, you're like, oh, he's 6'5", and he throws the ball as well as anybody.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of honing it in, and Carson Wentz has been able to hone it in at times, not as much this year. Josh Allen has been able to hone it in at times. But the thing about Trey Lance that's different, though, is that Carson Wentz didn't get to be the face of the program until he was in his fourth year, and then he got hurt. And Carson Wentz started less than 20 games at NDSU. Trey Lance has already started 16 games, and he's not given that seat up unless he grad transfers or straight up transfers somewhere else, which I don't think is outside the realm of possibilities. But when you go, the kid threw for 2,800 plus yards, he rushed for 1,100 plus yards, and he accounted for 42 total touchdowns and no interceptions. It's absurd what he did. But I do agree with you. The fact that he's a dual threat guy that seems to truly embrace the spotlight, he has a lot more outward charisma than any of the quarterbacks that they've had. And I think the fact that he's a little bit more flashy helps a lot too. But he is a star that I think that they could market. And the fact that the thing about it is, Easton Stick, Carson Wentz, these guys, they were so part of the system, even though they had NFL talent, that they didn't put up the crazy numbers to win the individual awards. Trey Lance winning that award, I think now it makes him way more of a star going forward. People are going to look at him. He's going to be looked at separately from them, and that's been the biggest issue they've had in cultivating stars, is even the guys that have been standouts have been a part of the machine, and he's special enough and has arrived on the scene early enough that he can be outside of that. But to me, the NDSU program was best encompassed and best summed up by that last play, because first it revealed, or I guess it affirmed, just the refuse to lose. We are going to do whatever it takes to win. Mm-hmm. We don't know how to lose. Everybody talks about learning how to win. North Dakota State forgot how to lose. That's why they're so amazing. But then you look at the kid who made the pick, James Hendricks. Once upon a time, James Hendricks was a highly touted quarterback recruit. They brought him in to be the next dude after Carson Wentz. And then they had this other kid who ended up transferring, I can't remember his name, but he was sort of he was supposed to be the bridge between Easton Stick and Trey Lance. But I think he got out of Dodge because I think he knew, like, I'm not beating out Trey Lance.
Nolan from Iowa State.
I'm just going to leave. But Hendricks, in the meantime, saw the writing on the wall very early because of this other kid as well, and so he started playing defense. But he didn't get a chance to be a starter until he was a junior last year. And now he's a fifth-year senior, but he learned behind Robbie Grimsley and Trey Dempsey. Those are the only two players, at least I think, to my knowledge, that started 60-plus games in their college football careers. So to learn behind those guys, and then when it's your turn, be able to rise up and embrace the moment, that's the NDSU program in a nutshell. The sideline reporter asked Matt Entz after the game, what has this been like for you? And he said, it's been utterly surreal because this program's not mine yet. I've been a coach here for a long time, but the players do it all. And that's the thing that makes North Dakota State so special. Everyone holds each other accountable, and you know the standard, and you cannot play in the system unless you know the standard.
I would say, too, though, to that, Matt Entz, I thought the play of the game, the call of the game, was the fake field goal touchdown.
Definitely.
That was a moment where North Dakota State felt very much in control of it, and the conventional wisdom is to take points. But we talked to Jeff Colhane, who's the voice of the Bison, in the lead-up to this game. And he said, one thing that Matt Entz wanted to do, said he was going to do, he said, I'm forcing teams to defend us on every single play. I don't care if it's a field goal, if it's an extra point. Like, you always have to be ready to defend us. And you know what? James Madison was not ready to defend them on that play. They thought it's a field goal. They had to take the points, and they didn't do it. And it was a risk that had a high reward and a high probability of success given the situation. But you also have to have the onions to get out there and go for it. And for that, Matt Entz deserves credit, because I agree. I mean, a lot of people, the coach, it's so funny where the coach is the face of almost every college football program in America, but not at North Dakota State, especially now, because it's such a machine. You go, okay, well, of course they won. I could have been the coach, whatever it is. Well, I thought Matt Entz, he deserves credit for the year, certainly, for winning a national championship, and in that moment, making a decision that wasn't resting on the laurels or even the way the game seemed to be going, and they were ready to make that play, and then they made it. But you're right. I mean, it's all about the players and guys, who step up in the big moments, and guys like Trey Lance who seem to always be just straight gamers. I mean, period, end of story. And you're going to watch this kid for a long time, and he is going to bring eyeballs to the FCS. There's no doubt about it. It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Quick break. How about the NFL? Seattle Seahawks and the Green Bay Packers. I know the 12s are in mourning today. Feel very much like they caught the short end of the referee's stick when it came to the fourth down or the third down conversion or not by Jimmy Graham. We'll talk about that and the rest of what transpired in a crazy divisional weekend in the NFL right after this. Hey, at the Silver Slipper, it's all about their urge to have a good time, enjoy themselves, and have you enjoy yourself. You want to go to the Silver Slipper? You can have beverages, late-night happy hour, late-night game of poker, a family meal, whatever you need. They got it all for you there. They have exactly what you're looking for. Right now, the Silver Slipper is your football headquarters. 56 televisions to watch sports on, drink specials every single day, a full liquor store, and Tarantino's Pizzeria. The Silver Slipper has all you need to watch your favorite games, including the national championship tonight, plus the friendliest staff in town. Visit thesilverslipperlounge.com for more info. Stop by today and see why the Silver Slipper is one of Montana's best-kept secrets, across the street from Super Walmart on Brooks. In Western Montana, we know shopping local matters, and you may think you'd pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it, but not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with knowledgeable specialists that can answer your questions. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at SelwayArmory.com.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Have you been in an accident and have no idea what to do? I'm here with Catherine from the Advocates Injury Attorneys.
Unfortunately, people are injured in accidents every day, and dealing with the insurance company can add even more pain to an already bad situation. That is where hiring the advocates can help. Let us guide you through the process and take on the hassles for you so you can just focus on getting better.
If you've been injured in an accident, give the Advocates a call, 406-640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. The Advocates are on your side.
At the Montana Club, our goal is to create a menu of mouth-watering food with variety to satisfy any craving. From the garden fresh ingredients in our salads to our succulent, perfectly grilled Montana Club Angus steaks, we take pride in every detail that goes into preparing your food. Top off your meal with a premium cocktail, wine, or microbrew. Come as you are and satisfy your craving with our home-style breakfast, lunch, and dinner at the Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Down pump, who pump it up.
After a hard hard day at the office, there's nothing like kicking back with a cold one. Town Pump's got just what you need. Bud, Miller, and Coors 12-pack cans, 2 for $20. And you can mix and match. Need that snack to go along with it? Doritos Double XL chips, 2 for $6. Town Pump, right down the road.
Right down the road. Pump it up, yeah.
Grizz Greats, The Coaching Tree, brought to you by Blackfoot, is a new podcast series from ESPN Missoula. Judd Heathcote, Mike Montgomery, Larry Kristoviak, and others have led the men's Grizzly basketball teams over the years. Ryan Tutel and Colter Nuanez sat down with every Grizz basketball coach, from Jim Brandenburg to current head coach Travis DeCure, to talk about what makes Montana basketball and Missoula so special. The first episode will be available Wednesday, January 15th, wherever you enjoy podcasts.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good evening, Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez. Sports News, here we go. Grizzly consensus All-American linebacker Dante Olson cemented his college football legacy Friday night, becoming just the third Grizz to win the Buck Buchanan Award as the best defensive player in the FCS. Olson finished with 36 first-place votes and 363 total points, beating Rondell Carter of James Madison, who had 27 first-place votes and 275 points to finish second. Troy Bierman in 2007 and Tyrone Holmes in 2015 are the two other Montana alums to win the award.
Well, Big Sky point guard Holland Woods converted a layup with 2 seconds left to lift Portland State to a 77-76 victory over Montana State in Bozeman on Saturday. MSU's Harold Frey, who shot with 12 seconds left, gave the Bobcats a 1-point lead, misfired on a half-court shot at the buzzer. The loss drops MSU to 3-3 in Big Sky play, 5-2 at home and 9-8 overall, despite 26 points from Frey. Woods poured in a season-high 30 points to help PSU snap a 3-game conference losing streak.
The Vikings are 2-3 in league play, 3-7 on the road and 8-9 overall as they make their way to Missoula tonight to take on leading Montana. Portland State has been a thorn in UM's side of late. The Vikes swept the Grizzlies last year, including posting a 77-74 overtime win in Missoula that included 28 points from Woods. The Grizz, though, are 4-1 in the league following last Thursday's 90-63 rout of preseason Big Sky favorite Eastern Washington in Cheney. Tip-off from Dahlberg Arena, 7 p.m. WX Montana Television. Happy to be with you on this Monday evening. Hope you're having a wonderful day. What a weekend it was in the NFL. The number 1 seed falls 28-12 as Tennessee beats Baltimore. San Francisco just asphyxiates Minnesota 27-10. And then the swing of swings in Kansas City as Houston was up 24-0, only to be down at halftime 28-24 and lose by 20. But around here, I think the most number of people interested in games over the weekend was the Green Bay-Seattle game. And the Green Bay Packers were up 21-3. And then Seattle comes out of the half and scores touchdowns, not points, touchdowns on possession 1, possession 2, possession 3 to come close to coming all the way back. Had their opportunities. A big sack on a third down play in which Seattle certainly would have gone for it on fourth down if they would have been in any sort of range whatsoever with about 2.5, 3 minutes to go. Forced Seahawks to punt. The Seahawks defense held initially, and then as Green Bay got the ball back, they were trying to move the ball. A huge first down to Devontae Adams, and then the final play of the game that ultimately sealed it up, somewhat poetic, as Jimmy Graham got a very generous spot to give a first down and the victory to the Green Bay Packers, 28-23. Here's how the call sounded by Steve Rabel on Seahawks Radio Network.
Rodgers awaits the snap. He takes it. Here comes the blitz. Rodgers steps, throws over the middle. Jimmy Graham makes the catch, and he's going to have a first down. At the 35-yard line, Lano Hill made the tackle, but I think they got the spot just across the line to make. They needed 9. They got 10.
The ruling of the field stands as called. First down, Green Bay.
Now, this is interesting, Coulter, because to hear Steve Rabel give the call, he said that they got a first down. You know what he doesn't have access to?
The yellow line.
The yellow line.
Yeah.
And when he's looking at it and seeing, he can see the marker, he can see where they need to get. Certainly when the official came in and placed the ball, it was a first down. But he didn't even sort of protest the call initially. Now, looking at it on TV, it looked short all day long. I mean, you can see where the helmet is, and the ball's behind the helmet, and the helmet's at the line. We know the line's not official, but it's pretty close to official. Not the way that the Seattle Seahawks wanted that thing to end. By the way, still very much an uphill battle. I mean, they're down 5. Green Bay's probably going for it on 4th down right there to seal the thing up anyway. I might also add, it was a fumble and a clear recovery by the Packers on the first possession of the game that gives Green Bay, with the lead, the ball deep in Seattle territory. So, look, man, all this stuff kind of evens out at a certain level. Nonetheless, a win by the Green Bay Packers, and it's 1-2 in the NFC in Levi's Stadium on Sunday for the right to go to the Super Bowl.
Well, you know this stuff drives me crazy.
Yep.
I hate that we've devolved into like the way that we lead analyzing a game is by 2 penalty calls.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many things that happen in a football game. Be better on 3rd down if you want to win if you're the Seahawks.
Be better in the first half.
They
better. Scored 3 points.
Be better.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. It was a really entertaining game, though, wasn't it?
It was a very entertaining game. Have you the last thing I was going to say about the penalties?
Yeah.
Did you see there's a camera on the spot stick?
Yes.
Have you seen
on the pylon?
On the pylon.
Right?
Have you seen the angle from that?
Sure. Yeah.
He crosses the line.
Yeah.
So then I don't care what the yellow line says. Regardless, though, there was 119 plays run in this game. So to break it down and say that one bad spot or one yellow line it's not the case. The most striking parts to me were, first of all, just how hard it is to run the ball in the playoffs, man. All these games. And if you can do it to any level of efficiency,
then you're the Tennessee Titans.
You're the Tennessee Titans, and you're going to win.
Yeah.
Or you're the San Francisco 49ers, and you were going to destroy the Minnesota Vikings. But I thought that this was a very competitive game. I thought it's interesting because on paper, coming into this weekend, I think you would have said that this was the best matchup as far as how good both teams were. But then it also played out like that, too.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that there's a lot of just really good in this game. But I thought that the way that Aaron Rodgers has embraced the changes in identity that Matt LaFleur has emphasized, if the Green Bay Packers win the Super Bowl this year, it's not going to be Aaron Rodgers, the gunslinger that led them to the promised land. Although he is the face of the franchise, there's no question he will get absolutely a ton of credit. But this is not like when they won the Super Bowl the first time around, where it's just A-Rod thrown out of his back pocket, throwing from every arm angle that ever existed, just slanging it all over the field, making me laugh out loud. This is Aaron Rodgers, the mature, game-managing quarterback. And, I mean, he played great yesterday, but basically what this Packers style can be whittled down to is they want to get you in they love manageable 3rd downs because they know that they got the dude who's going to convert. What were they? I mean, they were 9 of 14 yesterday, but that was with a couple late stops. I think they converted like 7 of their first 8, maybe 8 of their first 9.
And also when they had to have them, I mean, on the last drive, the dime that Aaron Rodgers dropped into Devontae Adams over the top, it's such a spectacular throw between coverage. And then, the throw to Jimmy Graham was, I guess, a normal throw, but nonetheless one that you got to have on 3rd down to seal up the football game because, again, the last thing that you want, what did Aaron Rodgers say before the game? I want the ball late. He seems like it's been Russell Wilson who ends up with the ball late and finds a way. And that didn't happen. Let's hear it from Pete Carroll talking about this team and this season after it's all said and done.
Well, we're real disappointed that we put ourselves in a position where we had to come flying back in this game. And as crazy as it seems, we went in at halftime. These guys were jacked up to go ahead and take on the challenge of coming back. And so we talked like we do about the things that we have to do to keep your mind right and your focus correct so that you can position yourself for an opportunity to come back. And they did it. They did it again. And I'm so proud of this team. I mean, this is this team. The fans that follow us and watch us, they know. And you've seen this. And I hope at home that as it started happening, you can imagine it happening again, because we surely did. And I hope that it conveyed to the people that follow us and the 12s and the great following that we have. This is, I think, is the start of this team. I think this is, it feels like 2012 all over again.
You know what? I actually agree with Pete Carroll in that respect. Like, this is a team that went 11-5 and felt like it overachieved in terms of the record that it ended up with, and because of San Francisco, they still ended up with just the 5 seed and a very competitive NFC. But to win a game in the postseason on the road and get into the divisional round of the playoffs feels like, first of all, I think they deserve to be here, Seattle, and had themselves in a position to win that game. But in total, they're not as good a football team as the Green Bay Packers are. I mean, on the offensive line in particular, Green Bay is outstanding, and the running game, which is weird to say, Green Bay's better than Seattle is, and part of that obviously is because of injuries, and that's part of it. You'd think that losing your top 3 guys at a single position wouldn't really happen, but sure enough, there it did to Seattle, and that certainly is disappointing and changed the complexion, even with Marshawn Lynch coming back and all that. So that is there. That said, this is a young team. This is a team that's building, and when they go through yet another draft, if they can keep Jadeveon Clowney, who, by the way, is a free agent now, but I thought overall what they got out of Jadeveon Clowney on the season after he came over from Houston was outstanding. I thought he played really well for this team. Had some games where he was somewhat anonymous, but he had some game-wrecking types of games as well, and I thought he was good in this game. So if they could keep Jadeveon Clowney, I think that's big for this team, but it is a team and an iteration of it that's building, and guess what? Russell Wilson has come into his own as a top 3 quarterback in the NFL, period, end of story.
And he's been right there for a long time, but
he's always had him and who else, and now it's those questions.
Play some of his sound.
They don't exist anymore. Let's hear from Russell Wilson, in fact. Russell talking about expecting to come back like they always do.
When we were down 21-3 at half, and just kind of told the guys, we're going to win this game. Unfortunately we didn't. But the belief was that we were going to find a way. And that's the thing that we've been able to do all year. We were able to find a way, 95% of the time. And, so when we got the ball back there with however many minutes left, 5 minutes to go or whatever, we felt that. The whole sideline felt it. I think they felt it too as their team too. And that's just the reality. The reality is we didn't make the 1 or 2 plays that we needed to.
That's true. I mean, it's true. He went 277 yards in this game, had a touchdown, 21 of 31 was really good. He also rushed for 64 yards. He actually led the team in rushing by a lot, which ain't good, and yet he is good. Should have had into the teens of sacks. He ended up getting sacked 5 times. I mean, they were just in the backfield all the time. He's a complete magician avoiding the pass rush of the Green Bay Packers yesterday.
Well, first of all, to finish your point about the Seahawks and their future, I think that when you get to the playoffs and then you win a game in the playoffs, a lot of franchises, they're going to go one of 2 ways, because the window in the NFL, it's just so small and it fluctuates so quickly. And it remains to be seen what's going to happen with the New England Patriots. It remains to be seen the Minnesota Vikings, their window is very interesting after getting drubbed by San Francisco. Where do you turn from here? I mean, Everson Griffin's going to be up for a new deal soon. The Kirk Cousins deal that I hate, it's still only a 3-year deal. So where do you go with Kirk Cousins? Linval Joseph is going to be up. Xavier Rhodes is going to be a free agent in the offseason. Where do you go if you're Minnesota? And there's a lot of times when you lose, you have to pivot and go a different direction. Who are you going to sign? Who are you not going to sign? To get to the final 8 of the NFL playoffs, it takes an elite roster. And so with the salary cap, you can't always keep everybody. Seattle's in a very good spot because they have their dude under center. They do have a decision to make under Jadeveon Clowney, but and Bobby Wagner, having your best defensive player who's also your unquestioned defensive leader be a middle linebacker is a huge advantage in the NFL. Because on one hand, you say that you're paying that guy way higher than what actual market value is for a Mike, but you're also only paying him, what, 8.5?
Oh, way less than what you'd pay a corner. I think he's actually over. I think he might be at 11 or 12.
Sure, but you're still not paying 20.
It's not 19, yeah.
It's not 20. It's not what DNs and corners get. So you can go get some of those other guys too and still fit it into the scope of the salary cap. When the Packers won their first 2 games, largely on their defense this year, you were wondering aloud, is the Packers defense really elite? Are the Packers going to be able to win games with their defense? And now here we are in January, and the answer is absolutely definitively yes.
Well, I would say this to you. I agree, and it's a good thing, because for them to have any chance in San Francisco, I'm not optimistic about what they're going to be able to do offensively. And they got it. I mean, they got the guy who's, if anybody can do it, it's Aaron Rodgers. And Devontae Adams was spectacular yesterday. Aaron Jones, 21 carries, 62 yards. That's 3 yards a carry ain't gonna get it done, and you would expect less than that.
That's the thing, though, is like Aaron Jones looked among the best running backs of the weekend because that's how hard it is to run the ball. I mean, 3 yards per carry is twice what Dalvin Cook was getting. I mean, the 49ers were just stuffing the Vikings. The Vikings were averaging like 1.3 yards a carry.
I mean, what they did to Dalvin Cook in Minnesota was truly remarkable. I mean, I have such respect for Dalvin Cook and how good he is. And Minnesota, I mean, running the ball in general with their line and everything. Absolutely stuffed. And that's why I think it's going to be, period, who you are.
I mean, the Vikings rushed for 21 yards. How many rushes did the Packers rush for?
109.
Okay, so that is so much better, though. Yep. I mean, the Vikings averaged 2.1 yards per carry. Dalvin Cook, 9 carries for 18 yards. So 67 yards is by no means, or 62 yards is by no means world beating, but that's kind of what you got to get. But to circle back around to the point about the Packers defense,
that's what they got to win with against San Francisco.
We knew that Adrian Amos is a great player, and he has been a great player for them. Kevin King has definitely taken the next step, which has been huge. But Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith, and Kenny Clark are 3 dudes who I just love. I mean, Kenny Clark is an animal, man.
Yes, he is.
And the interior defensive linemen, they never get any love unless they're flexing with their shirt off on Instagram like Aaron Donald. And I mean, obviously, Aaron Donald is the defensive player of the year in the NFL. He's an outstanding talent. But guys like Kenny Clark, those are the dudes who help you win this time of year. And the additions that they made defensively are why they're standing here where they are today.
Yep, no doubt. And Zadarius Smith and what he has been for this team and continues to be as a pass rusher, I mean, they picked him up at exactly the right time where he was below what his market value should have been at, and he has overperformed his contract and everything. And he got a good contract from the Green Bay Packers, but he was outstanding. I don't know. No one knows if Marshawn Lynch is going to come back. It seems pretty unlikely. Great as he was down on the goal line and the energy that he was, he still only rushed for like 2.2 yards a carry, something like that. But he did do a press conference, and it is one of the favorite things, that I've ever heard. Here's the whole thing. It's less than a minute long.
That was solid. 4 touchdowns in 3 games. They're pretty solid. What's going through your mind right now? We lost. Come back next year? We'll see what's happening. But look, I'll say like this, though, right? It's a vulnerable time for a lot of these young dudes, you feel me? They don't be taking care of their chicken right, you feel me? So when y'all done, you go ahead and take care of yourself. So while y'all at it right now, take care of y'all bodies, you know what I mean? Don't take care of y'all chicken, you feel me? Don't take care of y'all mentals, because look, we ain't lasting that long. I had a couple of players that I played with that, you know what I mean, they no longer here no more. They no longer. So, I mean, you feel me? Start taking care of y'all mentals, y'all bodies, and y'all chicken for when y'all, ready to walk away. You walk away and you be able to do what you want to do. But I appreciate it. Thank y'all. Y'all have a good day.
Marshawn Lynch, the one and the only, man. That's why, he's why everybody loves this guy. Loves him. And how can you not? He's up there offering sage advice in a very unorthodox package. That's the thing, man. Like, I don't know. It's a whole different language, and yet if you traffic in it, then nobody that is there being more reasonable and rational than Marshawn Lynch about all this stuff. Nobody. So get y'all chicken right. Russell Wilson on Playing with Marshawn Lynch again.
To have Marshawn come back and to play with us was really cool, to be honest with you. I know everybody, thinks about, what happened before. I don't even go into it. But the reality is he's a champion. He's a warrior. He's a guy who I've always loved playing with. He was so much fun to play with when I was a young rookie pup trying to figure things out and in so many other ways. And we won the first Super Bowl, going to the second Super Bowl, all those things. And that didn't end the way we wanted it to, but fast forward to the time that he came back this year in the midst of a storm. But what Marshawn was able to do, to be able to talk to the young guys like Homer and to lift him up and inspire him, and to be able to just step in with a great leadership and great focus and a lot of fun too. He did some special things, and so it was a lot of fun playing with 2-4 again.
Absolutely. I mean, again, this is the thing, Coulter. I mean, the Seattle Seahawks and their ability to consistently come back in games like they came back, fell short but come back, and the expectation, when I talked about North Dakota State, always expect they just know that they're going to make a play. The Seattle Seahawks have been like that since Pete Carroll showed up. And one of the reasons is Marshawn Lynch the best running back that he could have found to come in and play? 100% no.
No, but he understands the culture.
Marshawn Lynch understands the culture, and Pete Carroll understands what the reaction to his re-entrance into the fold in Seattle is going to be and to mean for this team, and all of the things that could possibly be put to bed by bringing him back in. And 4 touchdowns in 3 games, 2 yesterday. Like, nobody cares about anything other than watching him run across the goal line with the football and Skittles flying everywhere. And the energy that brings, and a certain je ne sais quoi about the way in which a football team's culture can be and what that translates to on the field it's not quantifiable, man. And that was a spectacular, savvy move by John Schneider and Pete Carroll to get Marshawn Lynch back in. And he didn't carry them the way he would an all-pro running back would. He carried them, though, in ways that are incalculable to me. And I thought it was unbelievable what he did for this team. I certainly don't expect him to be back next year.
In the NFL, it is so hard to win 10 or 11 or 12 games every year in and year out. The New England Patriots, as outstanding as they have been, they are absolutely the outlier. So often you have this little window. And when you have look at the San Francisco 49ers. They were so good in the 80s and the 90s. Then they were largely irrelevant for the late 90s and most of the 2000s. And then they get Jim Harbaugh, and they have this great core with Navarro Bowman and Patrick Willis and Aldon Smith. And then Colin Kaepernick explodes, and he's this transcendent guy who no one really knows what to do with him. And they make it to the NFC Championship game. They make it to the Super Bowl, and then it's over. And then they had to do a full-fledged rebuild. So on that note, Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson, and the rest of the Seahawks, they deserve so much credit for always being competitive during this era of Seahawks football. But I want to ask you this. I think that, on one hand, it is so commendable to never get blown out. They never get blown out. It's a touchdown game with the Seahawks, always, whether they win or lose. They oftentimes play up to their competition. They oftentimes play down to their competition. It's going to be a one-score game when the Seattle Seahawks are playing in it. And because they have such a great quarterback and such a great coach, they more often than not win. But I just wonder if the complete and total culture that they've encompassed limits their absolute ceiling. I don't think as a franchise they're ever going to take the full risks to go all in. Like the Rams went all in on win the Super Bowl last year. And what happens when you do that and it doesn't work, and then you can't re-sign all those guys? Well, now you're out of the playoffs, and you're a one and done, and who knows if your window will ever open up again. There's no way to tell. But I just think it's fascinating that the Seahawks, during this era, they've never been worse than 8-8, I don't think. They've never had a below 500 record with Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson. But on the other side of it, I don't think they've ever won more than 11 games. They are on a 10 or 11 win team every single year, and they win a playoff game and get to this point, and they have gotten over the hump when they had the Legion of Boom. But I just wonder, with how they're built now, if the mentality that exists across the franchise, if it limits their ability to truly kick down the door and win another ring before this little era is over.
Kick down the door is exactly the word I would have used, because that is what the Legion of Boom brought to them. It was the mentality that we are going through the front door, which is locked, and we don't care that it's locked. We are kicking the door down. And this defense, the offense is better, actually, than it was when they won the Super Bowl, Marshawn Lynch notwithstanding.
Because Russell Wilson's
is so
better, right?
much better. That's right. And they have comparable with the emergence of DK Metcalf skill position guys with him and Tyler Lockett. Point being, though, this defense does not have that mentality, and how could it? You have to build to that. The point is, I think they can. And the culture will not stop that from happening. In fact, it might promote it from happening. The question is, can you get the personnel to do it? Because it's not just like they're just growing on trees. So that's the thing that this team has got to find. But if they do, look out. I mean, they're going to be in a position to do it again.
Well, and the yo-yo of a football team, no matter what level you're talking about, is one of the things that makes the game so fascinating.
Yeah.
There's only been a few teams in the history of football at any level that have been absolutely elite at everything.
That's right. No,
take the Montana State Bobcats, for example. If they get an absolutely dynamite quarterback, that will solve their biggest issue. But it will have a detrimental effect on every other element of their team, because that's the way that the symbiotic universe that is a football team works.
Well, maybe.
But if you're going to be a defensive run-first football team, that's what you have to be. But as soon as you go and try to win games in another way, you get what you emphasize, right? Yeah. And I just wonder, the defense is going to get better for Seattle. They absolutely are. They're going to continue to improve. But will it be at the same timeline that the offense stays at the level it's at or continues to improve too? It's just such a give and take, and that's why salary cap sports and the NFL specifically is so fascinating.
Plenty more to talk about that, and we will. And, of course, championship weekend coming up on Sunday, and we will. But immediate and pressing, how about the FBS National Championship? Clemson, LSU. We get you set for the Natty next.
Hey, it's Coulter, and I'm here with Catherine from The Advocates. If you've been in a car accident or need help dealing with the insurance companies, you should give The Advocates a call. They can tell you if you have a case right over the phone.
That's right. It doesn't cost anything to call, and we'd be happy to talk to you and assess your situation. You don't want to have to deal with contacting the insurance companies and setting up a claim. We can do that for you. We take the hassle out of the process, so you can just focus on getting better.
There you go, folks. If you've been injured in an accident, give The Advocates a call, 406-640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. You deserve The Advocates.
Hi there. It's Les Schwab Tires. Well, more like Les Schwab alignment and brakes and shocks and wheels and tires. Now, some tire places don't offer all that. They only sell tires. And we're not sure how they sleep at night, because all those services affect things like steering and stopping. That's why we offer more than tires to help keep you safe. Stop by or book an appointment at leschwab.com. Les Schwab Tires, doing the right thing since 1952.
On Russell, across from the fairgrounds.
Hey there, Coulter Nuanez from your favorite daily sports talk show, Two Tell Nuanez. I'm here with Tom from Aspen Sound. Tom, last winter I got a sweet car starter. It's something I think everybody needs.
You know, Coulter, I couldn't agree more, and my wife sure thinks so too. We've got a lot of sweet deals. We actually have it capable now where you can start it from your phone from anywhere you'd like. We have two-way remotes that'll confirm to you the vehicle started, all the way down to our basic package starting at just $299 installed. Come on in and check us out.
Feel the music at Aspen Sound.
Most of my family, they never graduated high school, so I'm trying to break that barrier. My daughter, Brooklyn, was also a motivation for me to go back to school. Every day after work, went straight to school, and it paid off.
At age 26, Kareem finished his high school diploma.
I could not have done it alone. I see the future is really bright for me.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Hey guys, it's Ryan and Coulter from Two Tell Nuanez here to tell you about our brand new project that we are so excited to release, Grizz Greats, the Coaching Tree, the podcast series with all of the living coaches in the history of the University of Montana men's basketball team.
From the legendary godfather of the coaching tree, Judd Heathcote, a string of some of the most successful coaches in college basketball had their careers start at the University of Montana.
It really is a remarkable group when you sit back and think about it and what all of these guys have accomplished throughout their careers in the game. And Coulter, I'm excited because Wednesday, our first one comes out, Jim Brandenburg.
Brandenburg was only the head coach at Montana for 2 years, but he was certainly the bridge from Judd Heathcote to Mike Montgomery, and that set the stage for the rest of this tremendous coaching tree. We'll be excited each week throughout the winter and spring to roll out Grizz Greats, the Coaching Tree podcast.
Just search Grizz Greats wherever you get your podcasts and listen all season long. Grizz Greats, a Coaching Tree podcast, is brought to you by Blackfoot Communications.
Tutel and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula.
Versus 14-0. Clemson LSU for the national championship at the top of the hour. We will take you to the Superdome on ESPN Radio for the national championship here in just a couple of minutes. Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana. Outstanding to be with you. By the way, the Grizzly-Portland State game will be on SWX Montana television in an hour from now, or now 7 o'clock, I guess you say. So go ahead and check that out. Coulter. Oh, by the way, if you missed anything in the show, or if you just like it, you can listen on the podcast. The podcast available wherever you get your podcasts, thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel and Blackfoot Communications. Also, the Grizz Great Coaching Tree. The first central episode comes out Wednesday. There's actually a little introductory podcast, Coulter, that you and I did, kind of talking people through it a little bit. It's up right now. Wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc., you can listen to that right now. So just search Grizz Greats. And you can get that podcast. So it's brought to us by Blackfoot Communications. So thanks to them on this. You want to listen live? 1029ESPN.com is where you go. Stream's brought to us by Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. Coulter, the Clemson Tigers are the number 3 team in the nation. They're undefeated. They're 14-0. The LSU Tigers, they are also 14-0. They are number 1 in the nation, and they are playing a de facto home game. Although there's going to be plenty of tickets that have gone to Clemson, South Carolina fans who will be in there. But I expect this to be about a 3/4 LSU favorite crowd, which I don't know whether that helps or hurts LSU, honestly, in a scenario like this. What I do think
it helps, trust me,
is that they have the best offense in America by far. This is the battle. Is this the battle of the next 2 number 1 overall picks in the NFL draft between Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence? I mean, it very well might be, right?
I love Joe Burrow. I think he is an outstanding story. I think he is a really likable kid. His charisma and just the way that he kind of always believed in himself, bet on himself, and then the absolutely magical season that he had, and the chemistry that he has with Ed Orgeron, who's absolutely one of my favorite coaches ever.
Eddie, love him.
I get all of that, and I get how his draft stock has risen, but I just maybe it's because it's not as big of a body of work, but I am just leery of Joe Burrow's NFL prospect. I know that he's an NFL prospect. I'm not ready to rank him above Tua Tagovailoa or Justin Herbert quite yet.
Oh, I certainly am over Tua.
Just because of the
injuries, absolutely.
Right, and I get the Justin Herbert narratives and stuff like that. Maybe it's because I've watched Justin Herbert more. I think that, like, when I watch Trevor Lawrence, I see number 1 pick. When I watch Joe Burrow, I see first-round picks, certainly, but I don't see that true number 1 overall guy.
Todd McShay does this for a living. What's he got to say?
I had a 5th-round grade. I sat with him with Brian Griese, who knows quarterbacks as well as anyone I've ever been around, actually. We spent 30, 40 minutes with him in an office and talked to Joe Burrow, and we walked out and we just didn't know who he was. He's a different cat. It takes a while to figure out who he is. You watched tape on him last year, and it was hard to figure out who he was. We did the game live, and at the end, he's pretty good. And then I watched tape in the summer, and a great backup, I think, and he's got a little bit of room for improvement, but he's never going to be a really good starter. And then he gets this year with Joe Brady opening things up and allowing him to just go play quarterback. It finally all clicked for him.
Yeah.
And he is
remarkable.
In 20 years of doing this, I've never seen a quarterback improve from one year to the next as much as Joe Burrow has.
That's pretty remarkable. And by the way, he did not say he's the number 1 pick. He did not say he's even a first-round pick, but he said he was a 5th-round pick to me, and nobody I've ever seen has improved as much as he has, and he certainly got all the hype from it. Dabo Swinney looking for his 3rd National championship in 4 years, his second straight undefeated season. Here's what he's got to say on title legacy.
Regardless of what happens Monday night, this has been historic. Our program and even this team's not going to be defined by a scoreboard Monday night. Yeah, we win. Hey, we've won 30 in a row, and these guys went 15-0 again, back-to-back. But, man, it's been special. And we certainly, believe and hope, and we're going to do everything we can to win on the scoreboard, too. We know that matters, but, no matter what, we're not defined by that. This has been unbelievable.
What do you think about Dabo Swinney? Where are you at on it?
Oh, I love Dabo Swinney.
You do? Okay.
I love Dabo Swinney. I think that...
Because he does the thing that you're not always about, which is the family, hype it up, hug it out, like that.
Do you want to know why I love Dabo Swinney?
Yeah,
and I don't like that almost always across the board?
Yeah.
It's because it's not flawless and it's not complete and total in its authenticity anywhere else but with Clemson. I truly believe that Dabo Swinney's message of love is real.
Yeah, yeah.
And that, I think...
Like whether you accept it, but from him, it's true in him.
Exactly.
Yes, yes.
And so often when teams are trying to cultivate that culture, there's a lack of authenticity.
They're like, this is what we need to do because this is the way football players like to be treated, but not because you're actually...
And they don't straight up bat 1,000 when it comes to truly loving their players and having a culture of love. And if it's, to me, it just reeks of being inauthentic, even if you're doing it 90% of the time, because with the 10% that you're not,
it belies what's real.
You're exploiting your players. Yeah. And I don't think that Dabo Swinney exploits his guys. I think it truly is I think it's real. I really do think it's real. I also think it's so fascinating what has happened. The what have you done for me lately and the rising storylines. We've seen it happen with the MVP voting in the NBA so prevalently the last couple of years, but also now with college football. For whatever reason, Clemson hasn't lost a game, and they still got the best dude in the country, in my opinion, in Trevor Lawrence. And somehow, some way, they've just been an underdog. And I think it's hilarious that Dabo Swinney is taking it and rolling with it. Like, poor us, no one believes in us. We've only won 30 games in a row. Better drop us in the polls. I think it's classic.
You and I also both love capital L, capital of Eddie O. Here's Ed talking about a home game national championship.
When we found out last year that it was going to be in New Orleans, we thought that we were going to be there. Nothing was talked about, but I'm sure it was talked about in small circles. And what an opportunity would be for us, the state of Louisiana, for everybody to be there. I like it because it's a home field advantage. I like it because we don't have to get on an airplane and go down there. I think it's going to be a tremendous night.
It is going to be a tremendous night. And look, man, the stories on Ed Orgeron are long and remarkable for many different reasons. But what he is, like, again, you talk about fit, whatever the football thing is and what he's done with that offense, right? That was the issue. You could never score points with Les Miles. I don't know why. Now, all of a sudden, they're scoring points in bunches. They still got a pretty bad defense to go with it anyways, but also just him being him. I mean, him sounded like that coaching in the state of Louisiana. What more do you want? What more do you want than Ed Orgeron coaching the LSU Tigers? I love this team, man. This is I have such anticipation for this game. I have nothing but respect for Alabama. But the fact that it ain't Alabama in there makes this so much more intriguing. And the personality. Who'd I rather listen to, Ed Orgeron or Nick Saban? I mean, stop, all right? We all know the answer. This is going to be great. The Tigers of LSU, a 4.5-point favorite.
Wish you liked pro wrestling more, man. I'm telling you,
he is.
The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, played D-line at the University of Miami. He made the Rock character after Ed Orgeron.
Right.
He's a real-life pro wrestler. It's hilarious. Everybody, the cliche is everybody says, man, I wish I would have been in the locker room for that, win one for the Gipper speech. I think largely if you were in the locker room for the pregame speech from some of these legendary head coaches, it would be more along the status quo and it would be less thrilling than maybe what you wanted it to be. If I could be in any locker room ever, it would be in the late 80s or early 90s Miami Hurricanes locker room when Ed Orgeron's giving the speech to his D linemen, ripping off the shirt, headbutting the helmets. I mean, talk about authentic. That's authentic.
That's authentic. It might be authentically crazy. It's a huge game. It's the national championship. You want to get pumped up for it? Here you go.
Go Tigers! Go Tigers! Go Tigers! Go Tigers!
You got it.
Go Tigers! Go Tigers!
Go Tigers!
Go Tigers! Thank you.
There you go. But here's the thing. You can't really say that, right? They're both Tigers, Coulter.
True.
What are you going to do here? Well, who do you like in this game tonight? Straight up, just give me a winner. Who do you like?
Even though I just stood on the table for Clemson, I like LSU 35-28.
I really like LSU in this game too, and I don't really know why. Usually the teams that haven't been there are at a disadvantage.
It's too magical of a story, man.
It's a magical story, man. LSU, I think they're going to win this one too, but I think it's going to be a great game. This could set up to be another epic game. Boys and girls, enjoy it on ESPN Radio. Have a wonderful night. We'll see you.
Now, the Montana Club's happy hour features BOGO. Brews, domestics, and wine are buy one, get one free 7 days a week from 3 to 5:30. Stop in on Friday for Montini night. Sip on a top shelf martini for only $6, 5:30 to close. When you've worked hard all day and are ready to relax, the Montana Club has got you covered with BOGO happy hour 7 days a week, 3 to 5:30 on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Have you been in an accident and have no idea what to do? I'm here with Catherine from the Advocates Injury Attorneys.
Unfortunately, people are injured in accidents every day, and dealing with the insurance company can add even more pain to an already bad situation. That is where hiring the advocates can help. Let us guide you through the process and take on the hassles for you so you can just focus on getting better.
If you've been injured in an accident, give the Advocates a call, 406-640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. The Advocates are on your side.
Experience matters. Walk into any Farmer State Bank to learn just how much. You'll find an experienced staff of professionals ready and willing to go the extra mile to help you succeed. Bank on the go with mobile and internet banking solutions, or enjoy our legendary